These countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
Government will continue to advocate on your behalf and ensure that your interests are protected in any new global trade architecture.
On Thursday, April 5th, the 10% baseline tariffs imposed by the Donald Trump administration in the U.S. sent shockwaves through its many trading partners, including Barbados. That's because the reciprocal tariff policy is expected to have a significant and far-reaching impact, given that many Caribbean countries are heavily reliant on U.S. imports.
Our Caribbean economies are largely reliant on imports. Just go to the supermarket or visit the mall or the hardware shop or the electronics store and you will see that most of the things there are not produced in this region. Many of those commodities are either purchased directly from the United States of America or pass through the United States of America on their way to the Caribbean region. That, my friends, is a legacy of our colonial dependence. Together with colleague heads of state and heads of government, we have been working to diversify ourselves away from this dependence.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I really hope you're all doing fine from wherever you're watching me from now. The US government has slapped many countries with tariffs, and the Caribbean countries have not been excluded from this. Now, even after Marco Rubio, the United States Secretary, visited them, they still were slapped by these tariffs, and they are now reacting differently. And Jamaica is trying to retaliate, the Caribbean is trying to retaliate. So let's watch this video, then have a really quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
On Thursday, April 5th, the 10% baseline tariffs imposed by the Donald Trump administration in the U.S. sent shockwaves through its many trading partners, including Barbados. That's because the reciprocal tariff policy is expected to have a significant and far-reaching impact, given that many Caribbean countries are heavily reliant on U.S. imports and ship around 40% of its exports, such as petroleum, agriculture, and manufactured goods to America. Barbados' Prime Minister and Chair of CARICOM, Motley, invited President Trump to discuss the matter with regional leaders, so together they could find a solution to keep prices down, while emphasizing that the Caribbean is a friend, not a foe of the U.S. The tariffs come just days after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's tour of the Caribbean. And while most Caribbean countries face a 10% tariff, countries like Guyana, which have a merchandise trade surplus with the U.S., will face a country-specific 38% tariff. However, it's not just the baseline tariff that is concerning. A proposed U.S. tariff on Chinese-built ships could significantly increase shipping costs for the region. Prime Minister Motley urged the U.S. to exempt Caribbean nations from the policy, and actually wrote directly to President Trump in her capacity as CARICOM chairman.
I speak to all our Caribbean brothers and sisters today, not as the Prime Minister of Barbados, but in my capacity as chair of the Caribbean community. Our world is in crisis. I will not sugarcoat it. These are among the most challenging of times for our region since the majority of our members gained their independence. Indeed, it is the most difficult period our world has faced since the end of World War II, 80 years ago. Our planet faces a climate catastrophe that worsens every year. We have a cost of living crisis that has been bedeviling us since the disruption of supply chains when the COVID-19 pandemic triggered the shutdown of the majority of countries. Misinformation, disinformation, and manipulation are running rampant. The mental health crisis is causing hopelessness among many of our young people. And regrettably, crime and fear is on the rise. We're fighting wars in the Holy Land, in Europe and in Africa. Countries are distrustful of countries, and neighbors are distrustful of neighbors. The international order and the international system, my friends, is in grave danger of collapse. And now we are on the precipice of a global trade war.
While we can celebrate the promise of our economic expansion and diversification, we must also remain alert and responsive to evolving global trade dynamics that may affect our exporters and manufacturers. The recent announcement by the United States government of a 10% baseline tariff on imports from all countries set to take effect on April 5th, 2025, introduces a significant shift in global trade policy, one that could impact Jamaica's market access to our largest trading partner. Jamaica, like other CARICOM nations, have traded with the US under the Caribbean Basin Initiative, the CBIs. Many of you would know about the CBI, which provides non-reciprocal duty-free access for a wide range of products to the US market. Today, nearly 90% of Jamaican exports to the United States enter under these preferential terms. However, the new US tariff regime, rooted in a broader policy of reciprocal trade balancing, has raised serious concerns about the future of these preferential arrangements. While the government of Jamaica has not yet received formal notification on the precise implementation procedures, including whether these new tariffs will override existing CBI provisions, we are actively engaging with the United States Trade Representative and other relevant authorities to seek urgent clarification. We are also conducting a detailed technical assessment in collaboration with relevant ministries and agencies to fully understand the scope of these tariffs and their implications for Jamaica's trade and industrial policy. It is important to emphasize that these developments do not reflect any erosion in the long-standing and strong bilateral relationship between Jamaica and the United States. Rather, it reflects a broader recalibration of US trade policy that is global in scope. Still, we will use every available diplomatic channel, including working with our CARICOM brothers and sisters and utilizing the Office of Trade Negotiations to seek to preserve the positions our exporters have secured over decades of deepening trade ties with the United States. Preliminary analysis indicates that some of our top exports may fall under exempted product categories, and we are working to confirm and, where possible, to expand these exemptions. Again, I must emphasize that clarity is still needed on several matters. Furthermore, there may also be opportunities to be found, and we must therefore be proactive and prospective. So to our manufacturers and exporters, we understand the uncertainty this announcement has created. And we are with you every step of the way. You are not only integral to our economic strategy, you are national champions of our resilience and ingenuity.
Our Caribbean economies are largely reliant on imports. Just go to the supermarket or visit the mall or the hardware shop or the electronics store, and you will see that most of the things there are not produced in this region. Many of those commodities are either purchased directly from the United States of America or pass through the United States of America on their way to the Caribbean region. That, my friends, is a legacy of our colonial dependence. Together with colleague heads of state and heads of government, we have been working to diversify ourselves away from this dependence. We've already started to reap some successes, especially in the field of agriculture, for example, but we still have a long way to go. As we do this work, we have to be mindful that those recent announcements that have been made in the last few days will impact us very directly as a region and as a Caribbean people. We are working and will continue to work to become more self-sufficient. But I want every Caribbean man and every Caribbean woman to hear me. This trade war, and the possibility of a 1 million to 1.5 million US dollar levy on all Chinese-made ships entering US harbors will mean higher prices for all of us at the corner shop, higher prices at the supermarket, higher prices at the electronics store, higher prices for us at the shop, higher prices for us at the restaurant, higher prices for us at the car dealership and beyond. A lot of Caribbean people will think that these things that you are seeing on television news or reading about are far away and they don't impact on me. A lot of people think I'm just a farmer, or I'm just a school teacher, or I'm just a mechanic. They say, I live in St. Lucie in Barbados, or I live in Portmore in Jamaica, or Kingstown in St. Vincent, or Rima in Trinidad, or Basse-Terre in St. Kitts, or San Ignacio in Belize. These problems are far away from me and they don't impact me. That is what you will hear them say. But the reality, my friends, is that if you buy food, if you buy electronics, if you buy clothes, it will impact you. It will impact each of us. My brothers and sisters, our Caribbean economies are not very large. So we are and have always been at the whims of global prices. If Europe and China and the US and Canada and Mexico are all putting tariffs on each other, that is going to disrupt supply chains. That is going to raise the cost of producing everything from the food you eat to the clothes on your back, to the phone in your pocket, to the car you drive down the road, to the spare parts that you need for critical infrastructure. That means higher prices for all of us to pay. And sadly, yes, this will impact all of you, regardless of what any of our Caribbean governments will do. We could lower our tariffs to zero in CARICOM, and it will not make a lick of difference because our economies are small and vulnerable. This crisis, my friends, will impact not only goods, but it may also have a large spillover effect on tourism. We suggest that the region take steps to sustain the tourism industry, as likely worsening conditions in many of our source markets will have negative impacts on people's ability to travel. We call on our regional private sector and the tourism sector to come together and to work with governments to collaborate for an immediate tourism strategy to ensure that we maintain market share numbers as a region. My friends, I pray that I am wrong, and I'm praying that cooler heads prevail across the world and leaders come together in a new sense of cooperation to look after the poor and the vulnerable people of this world, and to leave space for the middle classes to chart their lives, to allow businesses to be able to get on with what they do and to trade. But truly, I do not have confidence that this will happen. So what must we do? First, we must re-engage urgently, directly, and at the highest possible level with our friends in the United States of America. There is an obvious truth which has to be confronted by both sides. That truth is that these small and micro states of the Caribbean do not in any way or in any sector enjoy a greater degree of financial benefit in the balance of trade than does the United States. In fact, it is because of our small size, our great vulnerability, our limited manufacturing capacity, our inability to distort trade in any way, that successive United States administrations, including and most recently the Reagan administration in the early 1980s, went to great lengths to assist us in promoting our abilities to sell in the United States under the Caribbean Basin Initiative. We will see how these tariffs will impact on that. That spirit of cooperation largely enabled security, social stability, and economic growth on America's third border in the Caribbean, or as we have agreed as recently in our meeting with Secretary of State Rubio, what is now our collective neighborhood. Secondly, we must not fight among each other for political gain. Because, my dear brothers and sisters, as the old adage goes, united we stand and divided we fall. Thirdly, we must redouble our efforts to invest in Caribbean agricultural production and light manufacturing. The 25 by 2025 initiative, ably led by President Ali, seems too modest a target now, given all that we are confronting. We must grow our own and produce our own as much as possible. We can all make the decision to buy healthy foods at the market instead of processed foods at the supermarket. Fourthly, we must build our ties with Africa, Central and Latin America, and renew those ties with some of our older partners around the world, in the United Kingdom and Europe, in Canada. We must not rely solely on one or two markets. We need to be able to sell our Caribbean goods to a wider, more stable global market. My brothers and sisters, in every global political and economic crisis, there is always an opportunity. If we come together, put any divisions aside, support our small businesses and small producers, we will come out of this stronger. To our hoteliers, our supermarkets, and our people, my message is the same. Buy local and buy regional. I repeat, buy local and buy regional. The products are better, fresher, and more competitive in many instances. If we work together and strengthen our own, we can ride through this crisis. We may have to confront issues of logistics and movement of goods, but we can do that too. To the United States, I say, this simply: we are not your enemy. We are your friends. So many people in the Caribbean region have brothers and sisters, aunties, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers, sons and daughters, godchildren, living up in Miami or Queens or Brooklyn or New Jersey, Connecticut, Virginia, wherever. We welcome your people to our shores and give them the holidays, and for many of them, the experiences of a lifetime. I say simply to President Trump, our economies are not doing your economy any harm in any way. They are too small to have any negative or distorting impact on your country. So I ask you to consider your decades-long friendship between your country and ours, and look to the Caribbean, recognizing that the family ties, yes, are strong. Let us talk, I hope, and let us work together to keep prices down for all of our people. My brothers and sisters, there's trouble in our Caribbean waters, but the responsibility each and every day for much of what we do and much of what we grow must be ours. If we take care of each other, if we support each other, if we uplift each other, and if we tap into the strength and innovation of our common Caribbean spirit, we will see this through. Our forefathers faced tribulations far worse than we will ever do. And yes, they came through it. My friends, my brothers and sisters, we can make it. We shall make it. God bless our Caribbean civilization.
In this episode of In the Know, we focus on the implications these tariffs will have on Barbados' exports and imports. Mr. Strawn, thank you for making time.
Thank you very much, Crystal.
How do recent U.S. tariffs on imported goods affect Barbados' export, and what sectors are likely to be most impacted?
The significant impact is going to be felt with respect to manufacturers. And as manufacturers export goods to the United States, and therefore that is where the first impact will be seen. I think what we have been working with respect to our importers, and I want to make sure we make this point up front, is that over the course of the last 4 years with respect to global disruption, we've been encouraging our importers to pursue more, I suppose, alternative approaches to importing the goods that we bring into Barbados, given the issues with the global supply chain, and therefore it is important to understand that this is going to have a dual impact. Now, with respect to exports, most of the goods are typically consumed by our diaspora. So, Mobi and pepper sauces and those types of things that Bajans know and the people in the diaspora love will have an impact with respect to price. Now, coincidentally, you have better pricing in the export market typically than in the domestic market. So even though it's a 10% increase, 10% is relatively small compared to what someone would pay for the same product in Barbados. Generally speaking, simply because the market is larger, you get more products moving there. And therefore, we expect to see that over the course of the next few weeks and months, as I've encouraged the producers in Barbados to make sure that they speak with their distributors in better understanding, obviously, what will be the purchasing patterns of the consumers to understand what we need to do to recalibrate in the market. Of course, with everything presumably going up in the United States, you're going to have, especially on the import side, goods that would normally come through the United States that are imported will automatically be a little more expensive for importers, and hence we've been working with our importers in Barbados to find alternative sources with respect to being able to get items into the country.
What steps is the government of Barbados taking to mitigate the negative impacts of U.S. tariffs on Barbadian exporters?
We have been encouraging, well, we have already invested, I should say, with respect to the development of the International Food Center, which allows exporters to be able to achieve scale, and therefore the unit costs going out into the space then should be lower if they pursue that type of approach. So, for example, the facility at Newton allows someone with pepper sauce, any of those food condiments, to be able to produce up to about 10,000 bottles of whatever it is in an hour, fully packaged and the like, very compliant with respect to the regulations, and therefore it gives the opportunity for scale, and therefore being able to even get more efficient costing into the marketplace. Again, the sanitary and phytosanitary regulations that often serve as non-tariff barriers, we've put the investment there in order to ensure that we can certify those products getting into the market within that space. Now, it's going to come down to the consumption patterns of those persons in the marketplace, weighing obviously these products versus other products that might potentially be made in the United States, or relatively speaking to other imports from the region. As you know, in the Caribbean space, you get a lot of products from.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I really hope you're all doing fine from wherever you're watching me from. Now, we all know that Donald Trump has been slapping countries with tariffs. And in the latest move, he slapped African countries with tariffs and in the Caribbean. Now, most countries in Africa and the Caribbean have been reacting differently. Others going outrageous and making some bold speeches out of whatever Donald Trump is doing to its allies. Now, some actually went and tried to beg Donald Trump to lift the tariffs on them. Now, have you ever asked yourself, or are you asking yourself, what the Caribbean has done to make sure that the people, tariffs directly affect the markets, and the people in this case are the biggest, what should I say? Like, they're the ones who are going to be affected more with these tariffs. To mean they're going to dig deep into their pockets so that they can get some services or some goods from the market. Now, tariffs only means that your countries are going to pay more to get some goods, to import some goods to a country from different countries around the world. Now, Jamaican and the Caribbean have actually responded back in different ways. For example, the Barbados Prime Minister came out and was shocked on how Donald Trump is running things around. And she said that they are going to sit down and see ways forward on how they can make sure that the people are not directly affected, but they are regretting on how Donald Trump is treating the Caribbean and many other countries around African black countries. Now, Jamaican government, through its Ministry of Foreign Affairs, actually made a call to Marco Rubio, and you can see Donald Trump is laughing about this, how many countries are actually calling in to make sure that their tariffs are being lifted and or lowered in a way so that they are not directly affected, or the people are not affected. Now, this is actually so outrageous because if only we could have countries with working systems, if only we could have countries or leaders who had prioritized building industries, building factories, so that many goods in our countries are directly manufactured within the territory of our own countries, and not the other way around, that most. And I was looking at the Caribbean statistics and Africa. that Caribbean exports almost to 90%. It is 89.7% of its goods that are in the market. Africa imports, Africa imports almost 70% of the goods being used in their countries. The things that they do not export include meats and all this other stuff. But they also import canned meats. And I was shocked. We import food, we import clothes, we import vehicles, we import everything, building materials. And we have all these things in our countries. We have the mineral resources that produce all this stuff that we import. The only problem is that we've not built industries, we've not built factories that can process these minerals to make them finished goods so that they can be used in our own countries. So this is the advantage Donald Trump has used, and it is the only trick that Donald Trump is now using to make sure that he frustrates Africa, he frustrates the Caribbean. And in this case, the people who are going to suffer the more are the common citizens, of course. We all know that, right? You and me are the ones who are going to suffer because we are the biggest consumer of these goods that have been slapped with tariffs by the US government. And in this case, the only thing that remains of us is to start thinking about long-term results and long-term solutions to these things. We know that tariffs will affect us. Many countries are going to face inflation, right? And it is because many countries are using the dollar. And the US is actually targeting to strengthen their dollar by slapping you with tariffs. This only means that the US dollar is going to be great. And the only way that we are going to actually save ourselves is by using their dollar, right? If not, if we are going to use our local currencies to buy things from them, then they will have to exchange the local currencies into their dollar before they sell to us, and that means we are going to buy at a higher price than normal, and this one will hit us with inflation. We are going to face high prices in buying commodities in our own countries. And if this really happens to us, then we are done. Our markets are done. And we have no any other way than going to lick Donald Trump's ass, as he says, right? The only way we can better our countries, the only way we can do right now is to look for long-term solutions. And the long-term solution starts with the leadership. If you elect visionary leaders, and I've said this and I'm repeating this, it is time we wake up. We stop electing politicians. If it's good, we could have technocrats running the government, someone who has done economics. How do you expect someone who has done law to run your country? How does someone who did law understand economics, right? And the act of exchanging and buying includes, and the biggest field that is associated or related to this is economics. So we ought to understand how things move around in our own country. And there is need for the leaders we elect to understand these things. They should not read them from magazines or newspapers. They should not be told by those people who they have hired, because if they hire people with a common interest as them, those people who will actually obey whatever they say and help them to loot our countries. It is time, and I keep on repeating, the Caribbean, it is time. You have your own corner and discuss the leadership of your own country. Stop being bitter when someone talks about the rotten leadership in these black countries. We protect so much the corrupt people in our own countries. We protect them. We protect them a lot from criticism. And this is whatever has made them to go on doing the same things. If at all the problem, I've always said, the problem is not those in power. The problem is the people who take them to power. And I say that because we keep on doing the same thing. We elect someone, then after 2 years, we are like, oh my goodness, this person is not good enough to be a prime minister in this country or to be a president in this country. What do we do next? We come on, elect someone else from a different party who has been in the opposition, and you all know them by their actions, whatever they did in the past, but you just assume because they came to you seeking votes with sympathy, and you sympathized with them, you gave them votes, and now they're messing up the economy. I've been looking at the economy in Jamaica and in most Caribbean countries. Then I was comparing it to that in Africa. They're almost the same because they have almost the same leaders, very corrupt to the core. Leaders who only think about themselves and their families. They do not think about the common people who elected them to power. They do not think about changing the fact that we have had so many crimes. We've had fighting poverty and giving good services. Now, that's whatever propelled them to elections. Like they come with the notion that they are going to change how things have been working. Then after electing them, they leave the same problems because it is their system to work that way. They are programmed to work that way. So just to make you understand that there are no good politicians, it is time we wake up and save our own countries. Our countries are really running down the ditch. And if we are not going to do anything about it, we are going to have no countries. We are going to have no markets. And this is the trick Donald Trump is now using. You will see your leaders going to bow before him. It is a matter of time. They will all flock to the White House to beg him to lower or lift the tariffs. And it is after that they will do everything Donald Trump orders them to do. Be aware of that.